this will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before.
You know what the contract is?
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million, something like that.
The brutal realization finally hit Nike, and they gave Adidas the middle finger with their new Caitlin Clark contract. But the biggest shocker here is that Nike isn't just locking Clark down with a revised deal. They're also suing Adidas for trying to sneak in and mess with their...
These leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlin Clark.
Contract. Legally, it's a no-brainer. Two competing giants can't just poke around in each other's athlete roster like that. Now Adidas is scrambling, claiming they only made Clark an offer she didn't accept. But let's be real, they're up against Nike.
However, I will say that Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million for 8 years as opposed to Wemby's 100.
The biggest name in the game. Watching this battle unfold is oddly satisfying because, in the end, Nike wasn't dumb enough to let their golden goose slip away. And let's not forget how the internet roasted Nike for almost dropping the ball in the first place.
WNBA season, it was announced that Caitlin Clark signed a massive endorsement deal with Nike. This deal was for 8 years, $28 million with a signature sneaker included. Now, at the time, a lot of us were...
It's been an entertaining mess all around. Man, I almost feel bad for Adidas, almost. I mean, all they tried to do was scoop up what Nike straight up forgot about, and honestly, they nearly pulled it off. This wasn't just some random gossip flying around on Twitter either. It was the real deal, and it came with some serious heat. Adidas threw everything they had at Caitlin Clark, like they were trying to stage a sneaker coup or something. People were shook because this wasn't a casual deal. It was a full-blown takeover attempt. Adidas wasn't playing nice. They saw their...
Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlin Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world? And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials. We have not seen any ads. We have not seen any Caitlin Clark merchandise. And we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlin Clark signature
dance and went for it while Nike was caught napping. But here's where it gets even juicier. Nike already had Caitlin Clark locked in, but instead of treating her like the basketball goddess she is, they managed to mess it all up. They promised her a signature shoe, a whole line set to drop in 2024.
We might not get a signature shoe from Caitlin until 2026 or 2027. I didn't mean for this video to turn into a rant, but this is just another example about how people have fumbled the gift that is.
But in true Nike fashion, they fumbled the rollout. Not just a little mix-up either. Nope, they pushed the release to 2026, maybe even 2027. That's not just a delay. That's a full-on contract.
The praise, the commercials, the ads, the merch, like all of the things that she should have gotten during this rookie season. Nike hasn't produced one ad or commercial featuring Clark since she turned pro. And despite a signature shoe being part of Nike's agreement with Clark,
based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete, Asia Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture of the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it as Nike once used to.
Contract breach in capital letters. How do you mess up that badly? Apparently, Nike decided that Aya Wilson's shoe needed to come out first. Why, you ask? Because she's the MVP, and let's just say she doesn't have the same drama attached to her name as Clark. Yeah, that's the kind of thinking happening behind the scenes, playing it safe with Wilson while completely forgetting that Clark has an army of fans just waiting to crash the internet for her shoe, and if you're shocked, get this. Clearly, Nike didn't make this call purely based on merit or sales potential. Nope, according to insiders, they bumped Aya Wilson's shoe to the front of the line because, brace yourself, she didn't have the same racial tensions attached to her name like Caitlin Clark did. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. Nike thought it was a smart move to push Clark's shoe back despite her massive fan base, all because of a media-fueled narrative. Talk about playing it safe in the most ridiculous way possible. Meanwhile, Adidas wasn't just sitting around while Nike messed up Caitlin Clark's shoe deal. The moment they saw Nike dragging their feet, Adidas slid in smoothly and laid a massive offer on the table for Clark. Bigger money, bigger perks. Basically everything Nike should have done from the start, but didn't.
Currently the best player in the WNBA? Yes. Is Caitlin Clark currently the face of the WNBA? Yes. Do I think if A'ja Wilson dropped a shoe and Caitlin Clark dropped a shoe today at the very same time, that Caitlin Clark would outsell A'ja's shoe by 100 times?
Adidas saw their golden opportunity and didn't waste a single second making their move. But here's where Adidas really flexed. They gave Clark creative control over her own marketing strategy. Yep, while Nike was still stuck in their corporate red tape, Adidas went all in, offering Clark the kind of freedom that athletes almost never get. This wasn't just about wearing shoes. Clark was being handed the reins to design her own.
The hype that Caitlin Clark had going into this season, we will not see that again. She came off of playing in a national championship game that had over 20 million people.
Campaigns, shape her own brand, and connect directly with her ever-growing fan base. Nike didn't even see it coming. And then there's the shoe release timeline. Remember how Nike kept pushing Clark's signature shoe further and further into the future, from 2024 to 2025, maybe even 2026. Well, Adidas wasn't playing that game. They promised her a faster release date, making sure her fans wouldn't have to wait a century to get their hands on her kicks. Adidas understood one simple
She deserves it! She deserves it!
fact. Clark's fans weren't going to sit around forever. They were ready to drop her shoe ASAP, while Nike was still shuffling papers, trying to figure out a launch strategy. Meanwhile, Nike was in full-on panic mode. They knew they were staring down a PR disaster if Clark decided to take Adidas's offer.
Why?
Because in a head-to-head shoe launch between Clark and A'ja Wilson, Clark would wipe the floor with her. Clark's fanbase was on another level, and Nike knew that if both shoes dropped at the same time, Clark's would sell out in a heartbeat, leaving Wilson's to gather dust. Nike couldn't afford to let that happen, so suddenly they were scrambling to save face. What did Nike do? They went into full damage control mode, desperately trying to revive the original contract they'd neglected after months of pushing Clark to the sidelines. Now, they were trying to—
Despite winning unanimous WNBA Rookie of the Year, they've got no plans for a Caitlin Clark shoe. Why not? Well, the official reason from Nike is an obvious lie. What are they hiding? Is sports losing popularity? No, Adidas has done pretty well over that time despite ending their partnership.
bring her shoe launch back on track for a 2024 release, the same date they promised her originally, but then bailed on. Suddenly, they were all in on getting her shoe to market as fast as possible because they knew if they lost her to Adidas, it would be a disaster for them. But let's be real for a second. Was it too little? Too late? Nike had already fumbled the bag, and Clark's fanbase wasn't exactly happy with the way she'd been treated. The frustration was real. Fans had watched as Nike sidelined Clark to push Wilson, and now with Adidas in the picture, Nike was starting to look more like the villain in this story. It wasn't just about sneakers anymore. It was about loyalty, respect, and how Nike had handled their rising star behind the scenes. This whole Adidas buzz really kicked off after a tweet from Billie Jean King, who's actually an ambassador for Adidas. She was out here praising Caitlin Clark's achievements, and that's when things started to heat up. Insiders were buzzing about Nike's last-ditch effort to sweeten the deal. Rumor had it they were offering everything from bonuses to faster production timelines to a massive marketing blitz. Clearly, Nike was throwing
LeBron James had his own signature shoe his rookie year. So 20 years ago, Nike was nimble enough and had enough vision to see that, hey, let's get LeBron's shoe out here. This guy's going to be a big deal. They can't do this for Caitlin Clark.
everything they had at the wall, hoping something would stick. They couldn't afford to lose Clark, not just because she was a baller, but because of what she represented off the court. Losing her to Adidas would be a huge hit to Nike's image, especially with all the racial and social dynamics already at play. And it all happened because experts were saying these things. And if that wasn't enough drama, there were rumors of a lawsuit brewing. Yeah, Nike wasn't just sitting around trying to fix the deal.
Contract this? I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million.
They were also preparing to go after Adidas legally. They were accusing Adidas of contract manipulation, claiming that they had violated certain clauses in Clark's original Nike contract. Nike wasn't about to let Adidas swoop in and steal their athlete without a fight. So now, on top of everything else, there was talk of a legal showdown between two of the biggest sports brands in the world. This wasn't just about shoes anymore. This was a full-blown corporate war. Adidas made their move, and now Nike
landed a major endorsement deal with Adidas. This partnership is a game changer. It's a huge win for Clark and for women's basketball.
Nike was scrambling to claw their way back into the game. Whether or not they could actually stop Adidas from signing Clark was still up in the air, but one thing was for sure. Nike wasn't going down without a fight, and if you think it wasn't that big of a deal, let me tell you, these massive endorsement contracts aren't casual agreements. They're airtight. Athletes don't just hop from one brand to another whenever they feel like it, especially when there's an exclusivity clause involved. This was serious business, and both brands knew it. And guess what? Nike has that exact clause in Caitlin Clark's contract. This clause probably states loud and clear that Clark cannot endorse any other brands, especially their biggest rival.
This will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before. Obviously, little girls are going to wear them. I think plenty of dudes are going to wear them. You're just going to see those things in high demand.
Adidas, while under contract. It's standard stuff. But Adidas, they apparently decided to push their luck anyway. So, what's Adidas being accused of? Nike's not just making vague complaints here. They're furious, and they have reason to be. Rumor has it, Adidas has been actively courting Clark, trying to get her to breach that exclusivity agreement. This isn't just a friendly offer. It's a full-blown attempt to steal Nike's star, and Nike isn't taking it lightly. Adidas has reportedly been working behind the scenes, trying to sweet-talk Clark into thinking she deserves more than what Nike is offering. Some whispers even suggest that Adidas may have thrown in a few extra perks under the table to lure her over. Sure, the sportswear game is cutthroat, but this time, Nike says Adidas crossed a line. They're not just upset about the poaching. They're accusing Adidas of going behind their back and trying to manipulate Clark into breaking her contract. That exclusivity clause in Clark's original Nike contract? Yeah, Adidas should have known better than to mess with it. Yet, here they are, allegedly pulling some behind-the-scenes tricks to try and steal Clark away. It's like watching two fighters in the ring, but one of them is playing dirty and Nike's calling foul. But we're way past rumors now. Sources say Nike's legal team is already in full swing, prepping for a lawsuit against Adidas, accusing them of contract tampering. If that sounds like a big deal, it's because it is. If Nike can prove this in court, it could shake up not just the sports industry, but the entire endorsement world. Imagine two of the biggest brands going head-to-head in court over one of the hottest athletes in basketball. This is about to get real, and Caitlin Clark is right in the middle of it all.